Sabbath Day class. We thank you for joining us today. We hope that you all will enjoy the continuation of the topic that we're teaching, the resurrection, the regeneration, and the rebirth. We're going to go into our lesson where we were last week, and we're going to get started because we were talking about the Lazarus story and how it affected a lot of people that were on the line and how they wanted to re-kill Lazarus after he was resurrected. You know, and before I do that, I wanted to share something with you so that we would be able to understand some of the things that are going on and that we would understand something about the death process, because we have to understand what the death process is in order to understand the whole resurrection and regeneration. Because even though they were resurrected, there is a process that happens to you in death where you'll be able, that you know some regeneration took place, because without regeneration, you would have come up out as something, a horrible-looking corpse. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure you can see the screen, because I'm going to push this down out of the way. So I wanted to get you all's take on this. And when I did some research about the death process, these are the things that happens to the body between 0 and 4 days. It says the CO2 in the blood increases, the pH decreases, it says waste accumulates, cells are poisoned, enzymes destroy cells, and fluid-filled blisters on the skin. It says there's skin spillage and marbling, where the point where the skin gets so, I guess, transparent that you can see the blood vessels in the body, actually in the body, because the blood pools. Once the blood stops moving, they have something called avidity. And what happens with the blood is whatever position that you're in when you die or when everything stops functioning, the blood settles to that position. That's how they can tell whether a body's been moved, because you can tell, and I learned this through the business that I own. I dealt with death a lot because I dealt with elderly people and them dying, but you could tell that a body had been moved because of the avidity. It would be a change. So I wanted to share that with you. So before we get started, hold on, I dropped my phone. I'm sorry, I dropped my earpiece. But yeah, so that's the death process. So let me go. Now we're going to go to the resurrection, because it was not just Lazarus. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about Jairus' daughter, because we're going to go through the Old Testament and the New Testament to let you know that there is a congregation of these people that have been resurrected out of the Bible, that have come back, that have been brought back to life. So we're going to go to Mark chapter 5, and we're going to start at verse 22. And this is what it says. It says, "And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet. And he besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Yahushua went with him, and much people followed him, and they thronged him. While he yet spake, there came from this ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead. Why trouble thou the master any further? They said, why you come to get him? She already gone. Ain't no need of you doing nothing about it, because there's nothing you can do about it. She's already gone. Watch. It says, as soon as Yahushua heard the word that was spoken, he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. And he suffered no man to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the Talmud, and them that wept and wailed greatly. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, Why make ye this ado and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, and entered in where the damsel was lying. He took the damsel by the hand and said unto her, Talitha cumi, which is being interpreted, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years old, and they were astonished with a great astonishment. He charged them straitly that no man should know it, and commanded something should be given her to eat. Now, this is another one that was brought back from life, from the Messiah, and then I have a story behind that, because me being in Christianity, I just knew I was the end-all, tell-all of it all. I was doing what I was supposed to do. I was speaking in tongues. I was praying at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was making sure my life was where it was, and I was doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do to be able to work in the power that the Most High had given me, that the Bible said we were supposed to work in. And my sister gave birth to a stillborn baby, and I'll never forget this. I went to the hospital, and I was determined that I was going to work that power. I was determined I was going to lay hands on that baby, and that baby was going to wake up. So guess what I didn't do? I didn't go to her room. I went to the morgue. I went to the freezer because they had that baby in the freezer. And I went in, I asked him, I said, I want to see the baby. I'm dressed in all black. I'm going to do this thing, okay? I got to the freezer, and they had to call upstairs to ask the parents, for permission. And I remember my brother-in-law was like, yeah, let her go in. And when I went in, the doctor came, and the nurse came, and the doctor had to get the baby out of the freezer. It was cold in there, and they laid her on the table. And to see the look on the doctor and the nurse's face, the little girl, I guess she was a nurse's aide or something, but they had the fear of God on their face, like, what are you getting ready to do? And I went in and did exactly what the scripture told me to do. I laid hands on her, and I said exactly what the Messiah said. And that baby was frozen. At that moment, for me, I knew it was more to it than what the Bible said. I knew it was. And after I finished doing what I was doing and nothing happened, they said, are you finished? I said, yeah, just let me pray for it. And I left out. And I realized at that point that that's Yah's power, and that is more to it. Just like in the New Testament, our captivity isn't in there, and our punishment isn't in there. There's a lot of things that are not there that I think was left out on purpose, because nobody's just going to operate like that without everything being the way he wants it to be. So here's another case of another person that was resurrected from death, because she died, and they brought this little girl back to life. So anybody have any comment about that?
I just want to say, Yahushua is the Word made flesh. Yeah. He is the Word of Yah. So if he speaks the Word of Yah, it's going to happen. He spoke them to wake up. He spoke them to wake up.
Right.
Because he is the Word made flesh.
Right. Right.
So I think that access to that power of the Word of Yah that we don't yet possess, I think.
Well, I'm going to take you to a scripture where Peter did it. Because Peter and Paul did it too. Let's go to the widow's son. Here we go, Luke chapter 7. Here we go, Luke chapter 7, verse 11. And it came to pass the day after that he had went into a city called Nain, and many of his disciples went with him, and much people. Now when he came nigh to the gate of the city, behold, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother. And she was a widow, and much people of the city was with her. And when the Most High saw her, he had compassion on her, and said unto her, weep not. And he came and touched the bier, and they that bare him stood still. And he said, young man, I say unto thee, arise. And he that was dead sat up and began to speak, and delivered him to his mother. There came a fear on all, and they glorified Yah, saying, that a great prophet is risen up among us, and that Yah has visited his people. And this rumor of him went forth throughout all Judea and throughout all the regions round about. Now, here's another situation where this young man was gone. He was dead, and he saw the situation. So now we got Lazarus. We have Jared's daughter. We got the widow's son. I want you guys to keep a note of these people because it's going to be very important because we're going to go to the New Testament. We're in the New Testament now, but we're getting ready to go to the Old Testament so that we can see there's a congregation of these people that have been brought back from the dead. Watch. Matthew 27. Now we're going to deal with the crucifixion. It says, then the soldiers of the governor took Yahushua into the common hall and gathered him unto the whole band of soldiers. And they stripped him and put him on a scarlet robe. And when they had plaited a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. And they spit on him and took the reed and smote him on the head. And after they had mocked him, they took the robe off from him and put his own raiment on and led him away to crucify him. And as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear the cross. And when they were come into a place called Golgotha, that is to say, a place of a skull, they gave him vinegar mingled with gall, and that means mingled with myrrh. And when he had tasted thereof, he would not drink. And they crucified him and parted his garments, casting lots, that it may be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet. They parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots. And sitting down, they watched him there. And they set over his head his accusation written, This is Yahushua, King of the Jews. Then were there two thieves crucified with him, one on the right hand and the other on the left. And they that passed by reviled him, wagging their head. Now, you know how black folks do. They going to walk up on you like that. Just don't make no sense. Watch what they say. And saying, Thou that destroyest the temple and build it in 3 days, save thyself. If thou be the Son of God, come down from the cross. Likewise, also the chief priest mocking him with the scribes and elders said, and he saved others, himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. Trust in God. Let him deliver him now, if he will have him, for he said, I am the Son of Yah. The two thieves also which were crucified with him cast the same in his teeth. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Yahushua cried with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my Elohim, why hast thou forsaken me? Some of them that stood there when they heard that said, This man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on a reed and gave him to drink. The rest said, Let us see whether Elias will come to save us. Yahushua, when he cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. Watch what it says, the many things. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. Now when the centurion and they that were with him watching Yahushua saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, Truly this was the Son of Yah. Now my question is, where are those people? Because now we got Lazarus, we got Jairus' daughter, we have the widow's son, we got the many saints that came up out of the grave. Where are they?
Good question.
I have only appointed for you how many times to die?
One.
One.
Yes. Now, what is Abraham's bosom? When Lazarus died.
I'm on my way there, sis. I'm on my way. Just hold your voice.
Yeah, this is just my belief, is that when you depart the body, you don't necessarily immediately leave. I've talked to several people. One, when my son died, and I was talking to, he was engaged to be married, and later when I was talking with his fiancée, she told me that she and her brother went there expecting to see him because they had been to other funerals. Unfortunately, they had been to quite a few funerals of their contemporaries, and they have seen people whose body was up at the front, and yet the person was sitting in the audience at their own funeral. And so they said they didn't see my son, but that was their expectation. I also had an aunt, and I had two. They were in an accident, and they had been life flighted away. But they were able to describe what was happening. They saw people who were just walking kind of like with like a fixedness, walking in this general direction, and they realized that those people had died. Now, one of my aunts subsequently died, but I have one who's still alive who can tell me about having met someone who guided them and took them over to a place of safety away from these people who were moving in this general direction that everyone seemed to be moving in. So I know that there's a dimension that exists that you can be out of your body and you can still be present and you can still have a consciousness about you. You may not be able to communicate with people necessarily, but it's a dimension that's very close to the one that we're in. I can't explain it. I mean, there's something else I can recall. When my father died, he died when I was 7, but I had a brother who was 2 at the time. We were in the backyard, and my brother all of a sudden looked up in the air, and he saw this airplane go by, and we were looking at it. We couldn't see anything, but he said, he would say, "Hi, Daddy, Daddy." My father was in the airplane, and we circled around once, and he was waving at my brother. And when he came back again, he had this very solemn look on his face, and he was waving goodbye. Now, this is the same brother who, I will tell you now, could just leave his body when he wanted to. I mean, there are a lot of things that they're not, you can't explain them, and yet they exist. So I understand when you say there are a lot of things that are not in the Bible. We don't necessarily hear about these things, and yet there's a truth to them. It's not just one person. So I don't know how that all fits in, but I know that there's something. Right now they're having the funeral for my cousin's wife. I still believe in the resurrection. I don't believe in coincidences. As we're talking about Lazarus and we're talking about, all of these people have come back, I'm hoping that we are really on the cusp of something. I am trying desperately to understand what is that one thing that we really need to grasp. So I'm hoping that's the question that you're asking, and that's the answer that we're going to get.
Well, I think that if we get an answer, it has to come from the Most High, because no man knows the answer. But that's kind of a little different, talking about souls that have come out of the body. We're talking about bodies that actually get up out of the grave, and these bodies are actually walking around. So what happens in these cases is you have regeneration going on, because remember in the beginning we talked about the death process and what takes place in the death process from 0 to 4 days. And then these bodies are resurrected after the regeneration, and they're actually seen by people walking around, talking, eating, and doing whatever they are. These people are somewhere on this earth that they are being either protected or they're living among us, and they're at different age groups, because Darius' daughter was 12. She was 12 years old.
So what I hear you saying is that we have people who are even as I speak to you, just as I'm in a physical body, they're in a physical body. I'm talking about people who have exited the body and yet are in proximity to their body. I understand that there are two different things. I still think in terms of a different dimension that's very close to ours.
Possible. That's possible. And we will definitely deal with the building of the body and the soul, and we'll have a class on that, what happens to the soul and the soul when it leaves the body, because there has to be a place for that too if you're being reborn again. We're not really dealing with the rebirth right now because that's a rebirth issue, and for someone to take your cousin's wife's soul and call it back into the body, believe me, I tried it. And that's why I gave that example that I gave, is because I tried it, and it was something that I was missing. Now that I'm an Israelite, and I know I'm an Israelite, and I have all the components that are necessary, it still comes down to a choice of whether Yah will allow me to use that power or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But right now, as these people are resurrected in the same body that they have, they've gone from, and the question is, have they gone from mortal to immortal, or did they just begin to live a mortal life again once they're resurrected? That's the question. And if so, where are they?
I think I remember you saying something last week about them not having blood in their body, and if that's the case, then I'm thinking they're in an immortal state.
I don't know. That's a good question. That's a question that needs to be investigated because we just don't know. There are some things that we just don't know. We don't know. I mean, we can speculate and we can think we know, but there's some things that we just don't know. But the Bible clearly gives these examples because to let us know that there's more going on the earth than we know. You know what I'm saying?
So hence what you're saying, they walk among us?
Possibly. They could walk among us, and they could not. I don't know. Or they're in a dimension. Like she said, they may be in another dimension that we don't have access to, or they may be actually on the earth somewhere that we don't have access to. But I know one thing, as far as being in the heavens, there is no flesh and blood in the heavens. And there is nobody that went there that I'm aware of other than Elisha and Enoch. Those are the only two that they talk about that actually made that journey. So, I mean, when it comes to that, I mean, it's really something, like I said, it's really more to this than meets the eye, and it's difficult. And I know for some of you all who are new, this is kind of difficult to swallow, because a lot of people that have been in Christianity for 50 years is still on milk, and I understand, that there's a lot of things that we need to address in terms of that, but right now we're dealing with something from a supernatural standpoint because this is only an imitation of the way the kingdom is going to be when he gets his 1,000 years to reign. There's going to be two sets of people. They're going to be immortals, and they're going to be people with flesh and blood, reborn, to be able to live in his kingdom. And not until the Father comes with the city that has the 12 gates is everybody going to be immortal. So we're dealing with the kingdom now, the 1,000-year reign, or the 1,000 years of peace that he's supposed to get, and that the type of people in the governments that are going to be in this reign and the different people that's going to be a part of it. And that's what it is. So, and that's how it operates. So. That's what we're dealing with. So let's deal with the two thieves. And then we got two thieves. It says, this is Luke 23:39. It says, and one of the malefactors which were hanged railed on him, saying, if thou be Christ, save thyself and us. It's one of the thieves. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Doeth not thou fear Yah, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? He said, And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward for our deeds, but this man has done nothing amiss. And he said unto Yahushua, Yah, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Yahushua said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. And it was around the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. And then the question is, where is paradise? We're going to deal with that. And we keep moving because we're going to bring that up. Now watch with all the mockery and the reproach that they gave him. Ecclesiasticus chapter 27, verse 28 says, Mockery and reproach are from the proud, but vengeance as a lion shall lie in wait for them. They that rejoice at the fall of righteous shall be taken in a snare, and anguish shall consume them before they die. Now let's deal with Tabitha. Now we're going to deal with the disciples. Acts chapter 9, verse 36. Now there was at Joppa a certain disciple named Tabitha, which by interpretation is called Dorcas. This woman was full of good works and alms deeds which she did. And it came to pass in those days that she was sick and died, whom when they had washed, they laid her in the upper chamber. For as much as Lydia was nigh to Joppa, and the disciples had heard that Peter was there, they sent unto him 2 men, desiring him that he would not delay to come to them. Then Peter arose and went with them. When he was come, they brought him into the upper chamber. And all the widows stood by him weeping and showing the coat and garments which Dorcas made while she was with them. But Peter put them all forth and kneeled down and prayed, turning him to the body, said, Tabitha, arise. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. And he gave her his hand and lifted her up, and when he had called the saints and widows, presented her alive. And it was known throughout all Joppa, and many believed in the Most High. And it came to pass that he tarried many days in Joppa with one Simon, a tanner. So we got Tabitha. Now, it's like she said, the word was doing that. Well, guess what? Now Peter is done. Now, I'm going to show you that you can be in a particular state with the Most High where he gives you the power to be able to use his power in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. Some people would say, well, that ain't real. That's the New Testament. Well, guess what? I'm getting ready to show you where Elisha did it and Elisha did it in the Old Testament. Watch. Acts chapter 20. And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech unto midnight. And there were many lights in the upper chamber where they were gathered together. And there sat in the window a certain young man named, I'm letting you go mess with that. Somebody pronounce that for me.
Eutychus?
Eutychus. Okay, we can do that. Being fallen into a deep sleep. And as Paul was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep and fell down from the 3rd loft and was taken up dead. Paul went down and fell on him and embraced him, saying, Trouble not yourselves, for his life is in it. And when he therefore was come up again, and had broken bread and eaten, and taken a long while, even till the break of day, so he departed. And they brought the young man alive, and were not a little comforted. So we got the young man, we got Tabitha, we got the saints, we got the widow's son, we have Jairus' daughter, we have Lazarus, and it said it was many saints. This is a whole congregation of people that have gone through the regeneration and resurrection process. Watch, Old Testament. The son of the widow of Zarephath. 1 Kings 17, 17th verse. And it came to pass after these things that the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, fell sick. And his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. And she said unto Elijah, What have I to do with thee, O thou man of Yah? Art thou come unto me to call my sin to remembrance and to slay my son? And he said unto her, Give me thy son. And he took him out of her bosom and carried him up into a loft, where he abode and laid him upon his own bed. And he cried unto the Most High and said, O Yah, my Elohim, hast thou also brought evil upon this widow with whom I sojourn by slaying her son? And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried unto the Most High and said, O my Yah, my Elohim, I pray thee, let this child's soul come in unto him again. And the Most High heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the chamber into the house and delivered him unto his mother. And Elisha said, See, thy son liveth. And the woman said to Elijah, Now by this I know that thou art a man of Yah, and that the word of Yah in thy mouth is truth. 2 Kings chapter 13. And Elisha died. Now check this out. Elisha died, and they buried him. This is not Elisha. This is Elisha. They buried him, and the band of Moabites invaded the land at the coming of the year. And it came to pass that as they were burying a man, that behold, they spied a band of men, and they cast the man into the sepulchre of Elisha. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood up on his feet. Somebody want to answer? Y'all got something to say? Wait a minute, they lowering this dead body down into the grave. They trying to bury him quick, and he just touched the bones of Elisha and came back to life and stood up. These people got to be somewhere. And you go to Christianity, they say, well, they died again. And I want to say to them, that's a brilliant deduction, Sherlock, but that is not what the word says. It's not. They got to be somewhere. Here we go, the Shunammite son. 2 Kings chapter 4. This is the Shunammite. This is verse 15. And he said, call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, about this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, nay, my lord, thou man of Yah, do not lie unto thy handmaid. And the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. And when the child was grown, it fell on the day that he went out to his father to the reaper. And he said unto the father, my head, my head. And he said to a lad, carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knee till noon and then died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Yah and shut the door upon him and went out. And she called unto her husband and said, send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of Yah and come again. And he said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, it shall be well. And she saddled up an ass and said to her servant, drive and go forward. Slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. She said, let's hurry up. We got to get there. So she went and came unto the man of Yah to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of Yah saw her far off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, behold, yonder is the Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with thy child? And she answered, it is well. And when she came to the man of Yah to the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came to thrust her away. And the man of Yah said, let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her. And the Most High had hid it from me, and has not told me. Then she said, did I desire a son of the Most High? Did I not say, do not deceive me? And then he said to Gehazi, gird up thy loins, and take my staff in my hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not. And if any salute thee, answer not again, and lay my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As the Most High liveth, and as my soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and told him, saying, The child is not awake. And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead, laid upon his bed. He went in, therefore, and shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto the Most High. And he went up and laid upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hand upon his hand, and stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. And he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, Call this Shunammite. So he called her, and when she was come in unto him, he said, Take up thy son. She went in and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and took up her son, and went out. Any questions at all whatsoever? This is a common practice. This is something that Israel was able to do. This happened in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. It is a power that Yah has allowed to be exhibited among the Israelites, and only the Israelites were able to do it. And I don't know what it takes to be able to get it done, but the one thing that I noticed and the thing that they all had in common was everybody prayed before they was able to do it. Even the Messiah prayed to the Father when he raised Lazarus from the dead. Now, these people are alive, and they've been dead already once and been brought back to life. And the big question is, where are they? Because they experienced both the resurrection and the regeneration at the same time. Because once the blood stops pooling through the body, certain things start to happen. And we have to understand that this all plays into the whole Ecclesiastes, that there's nothing new under the sun. Any questions at all whatsoever? Comments, concerns, whatever?
Well,
I know. Go ahead.
I think these are latent talents, just like people have a talent for healing. They have a talent for foresight. There are so many different talents that are latent at this point. And I do believe that this is probably a talent that many people probably possess. It's just a matter of when are these things going to start to manifest. And I know people have talents. I know they have the ability to do different things. The question is, why do we not see them at this point coming forth? It may just be, it may be just a matter of time. I have no idea at this point. But to me, that, and also you said something, my thing is, what is the common thread with all of these? I'm actually sitting here trying to look through the Blue Letter Bible because I wanted to look up and look at what these words actually mean. What are some of the different meanings? So I'm not yet there. But to me, it's like a study. It's like, it's a study to show thyself approved. And it says when we look for him with our whole heart, we will find him. And so I'm thinking we are supposed to search. We're supposed to look. We're supposed to get ourselves in a position to receive and to have these things start to manifest in us. So I don't know where these people are, but I'm sorry. I will be quiet.
No, you talking. Go ahead. I'm listening. You said
someone else.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Hello? Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, these people, wouldn't they be like gods then if they were brought back to life? Because isn't that why the Most High gave us death, so that we wouldn't be like gods? When they be in a state of like a godship or something?
Yeah, if they're immortal. If they're immortal, then they are at a different status than a human. They're not where you are, because being immortal means that you're not being sustained by blood. Because life is in the blood when you're mortal. And that is the process of the birth and the whole incubation of the being born from the womb of the woman. So being born from the womb of the woman means that the blood circulates through the body to be able to give it the nourishment that it needs for you to be able to function. It gives nourishment to all of the organs, the cells, and everything. But once it stops, life stops. So if these people are mortal, if they have been turned into mortals, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Like I said, I don't fill in the blanks. I just present the information. Because to me, if I don't know, I don't know. And I'm not going to try to say, well, this is what happens or this is where I think they are. I don't know, but I brought this information to let you know that there is a group of people that are out here that have transformed from one phase to another, and there's no evidence that says these people died again. None. And they are existing somewhere for the appointed time.
Well, maybe they are like flesh and blood, like God, because we know the Most High didn't want it to be because of our transgressions. I think we once had that capability of living forever. That was taken away. So they must be at that status level. And maybe the people who think might be angels could be them. One of them.
And we will get our immortality back, because the whole purpose is to get to the kingdom. We're on our way to the kingdom, the 1,000-year reign that's coming after the rule of the Gentile. So after the rule of the Gentile, the 1/3 will be elevated back to the God status and be immortal again. And once the 1,000 years goes into effect, then people will begin to continue to be born again. So you're going to have a group of flesh and blood people that are marrying and having children and doing the things that flesh and blood people do. And then you're going to have immortals that will not practice that. They will not have husbands and wives. They will be back at the God status of they'll be basically the cabinet of the house of Israel, making sure that the government is ran according to his specifications. And that's what this whole 1/3 thing is all about. And it's a whole lot deeper than what we know. And these people may or may not be with us in the wilderness. I don't know. I can't say. They may be, once we get to the wilderness, at that final destination, because the wilderness is our final destination that we will go to for that 3.5 years. And when the Gentile gets their time to fully reign, they're only going to have 3.5 years. And the wilderness will be the final destination. And I believe at that point, that's where the cut is going to be made, before the third makes their transition back to immortality. But I think the reason for this is to let you know that a lot of people think that they're going to get a different body. But we're going to get a different body. No, you're going to be in the one you're in. You'll just be regenerated.
But it'll be a better body, right? I mean,
yes, that's what regeneration means. That's what regeneration means. Everything will go back to the normal spot. It will be like it was supposed to be, but it'll be the body that you came here with. Now, depending on what age you are, when this takes place is different because, like I said, the man's daughter was 12. The Shunammite son didn't say how old he was. Nothing said how old this son was. But the one man who was thrown into the grave with Elisha, he was a man. And he stood straight up. Life came back in him again. Blood with the flowing. Body started regenerating in a moment. And if you've ever seen somebody that's deceased, they look like it's just nothing. It's like it's empty. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a being that has no movement or anything.
Well, if they are like in a God status, I guess the age really wouldn't matter because having a God-like status means you really, I don't know, it supersedes
So that's what that
everything
means. That's what that means. That means that if they're allowed to go to the wilderness with us, our children are going to be with us for whatever age they are. If that little girl is available and she's there with us, she's going to be at kid status, but she ain't going to be like our children are. But she'll probably be there with our children, playing with our children. That every age group is going to be represented. Every age group.
If there's a purpose for this, then it's for this time. Because nobody's really ever asked that question that you bring forth. So I think it's coming out now because it's time for it to come out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we move into that next phase. The curse is over with the Most High. We've done our 400 years. So he has to get our minds ready for the things that we're about to see. We couldn't teach this before. Because everybody would have been like, well, what's the point? Why is that necessary to know? You know? Someone is talking in the background. Can you put your phone on mute?
Whole time.
You know, I hate to mute somebody's phone, but yeah, it's necessary now for us to know those things because we're on our way to that point. All praises to the Most High, yeah. So the thing is that, knowing Israel the way they know, these are the things that we knew as a nation. We knew these things. We were familiar with this. This was common for us as a people to know how the Most High operated with life, with death, with resurrection, with regeneration, with rebirth. That's why when Nicodemus went and snuck to try to meet the Messiah, he went and snuck and was like, tell me more. So what's this rebirth stuff? You mean, how can a man enter into his mother's womb and be born again? Is that how it happens? And the Most High admonished him. And then he said, how are you a teacher of Israel and you don't know this? We was used to the supernatural. We saw things that other people didn't see because he was our God. He didn't hide anything from us. We were able to do the supernatural. Can you imagine a man so powerful that even after he's dead, he has the power. He has so much of Yahweh's power in him that a dead body, a corpse that hasn't breathed, don't know how long he's been dead, they done buried this man in this man's grave, and as soon as he touches the man's bones, he jumps back up and stands up and comes back to life. That's a lot going on. What? But we've been watered down. We've been watered down so much from the scriptures and from Christianity that these are the things that we don't even think about anymore. And they have made excuses for things they can't explain to make it seem like it ain't real. I know when you guys get quiet, you guys is quiet. It's like, whoa.
Well, I was just thinking, Sister Yaina, not only did when we used the supernatural, it was a supernatural world, if that makes sense, because there was other beings, and like even in Noah's day, they knew that there were children of the fallen and all of that existed amongst them. So it wasn't. It's just now that that world has been made a fairy tale, and so we think it's hogwash, and it's not.
No, it's not. It's real, and they left it on record, sis, so you can read it and say, wow, this was really happening. This happened. You know? And I just knew I had the power to do it when my sister gave birth to that stillborn baby. I just knew in Christianity because I believed it to that point, and I felt like I was living the life that was necessary to exhibit that power, that I went in that morgue to be able to bring that baby back to life. But when it didn't happen, I realized at that point that there was more to it than what I was reading. And it's just like Yah to not give away all of the information. He's not going to let you operate in that power. You won't have the ability to do that until he deems that you are ready, or until whatever he needs to have happen for us to be able to do that. And believe me, they've been trying to figure out how to do it forever so that they could put a price tag on it. Because if Christianity knew how to do it, you better believe you pay for it. You pay for that. Mm-hmm. And probably be able to afford it.
I just keep hearing it's not by our might, not by our power, but by his spirit. And it's going to be for works that we need to be fulfilled at the appointed time that will come back, because there'll be things that we were dealing with there'll be things that we will have to deal with as they dealt with back then. So that power will now be necessary at that point, not so much now.
But just look at that, the Shunammite woman. She was there because she gave refuge. You know what I'm saying? She gave refuge to the prophet. You know, and he spoke a blessing on her. He said, you're going to get pregnant around this time in your own season. And she hadn't been able to have any children. And she had a son. And right after that, the son, after he grew up, she died. She went and found him. Like, look, did I do something? Is this boy's death as a result of my sin? Well, I told you not to deceive me. And guess what they did? They went and he laid on that baby and brought that baby back to life. So some of it was as a reward for her being there for the prophet. And the man that fell into Elisha's grave didn't do nothing. They just threw him over in there to keep, because the Moabites was coming. And as a result of that, he got to live again. But the fact of the matter is, they living. They're living somewhere. Because there's no record anywhere that said they died again. Not in this Bible, because believe me, I have looked. I have looked. All praises to the Most High. I have looked. It's just to bring out the information. We're dealing with the resurrected, the regeneration, and the rebirth. You know, now we can move into the kingdom and how the kingdom is going to come into play and when the kingdom is supposed to come into play and what's going to be the activity of the kingdom as it comes into play, because this is the gospel that we're supposed to be preaching. That the kingdom is coming.
Sister Yaina, I had another comment.
Yes, ma'am.
In addition to the resurrected or regenerated community, I remember a passage, I don't know the exact scripture, but where Christ said that there be those here with me that will not taste of death until his kingdom comes. So that's another group.
That's a whole other group. He sure is. He said there are those that are standing here with me that will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming. So that's a whole other group that's getting ready to live. And they said that one of those in that group was the soldier that pierced him. They ain't going to die until they see him coming. So that means somebody been living for 2,000 years. And longer. Any question at all? You know, that's a very good point. And I meant to bring that out. I'm glad you brought that out, too, at the end, because he said there are those that are standing here now that will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming.
I'm wondering, could that in any way be associated with the statement that the days would be short, and if the days weren't shortened, then no one would survive?
I'm not quite. I think that's more on the level that they are going to be so diabolical in the way that they are trying to fuse man and machine together that there would be no flesh left alive, because they're trying to wipe us out. If they could, they would. But it's only because of Yah that Israel is protected and the world is protected. You know, because one thing about it, you have to understand something. When you have a being that has been kicked out of his heavenly habitat and he can't go back anymore, he definitely don't want you to experience what's coming with it. And, you know, he clipped Lucifer's wings. He clipped his wings. He's stuck here. Those are all of the things that are going on in the scientific community, and with all the things that the Gentiles are doing, and all the things that the heathen is doing. All of that is mixed in to him, because he's going to get 3.5 years to rule the world. That's all he's going to get. And we haven't gotten to that point yet, because when we do, we'll be in the wilderness.
And I'm thinking that we're in the wilderness, but then, you know, all hell is broke loose in the areas where we aren't, where the wilderness isn't. And I'm thinking that those people will be subject to all kinds of things. One is nuclear blast, and I'm thinking that those people, now that's what I'm thinking, that, you know, they would totally be wiped out if he didn't return. So I don't necessarily think it seems like there are so many things that are unfolding. It seems like there's like a sequential unfolding of things. So we go into the wilderness. We're going to have people who are going to, if they don't make it into the wilderness, they're going to be running for their lives. They're going to be in crevices. Spurn will have been open. You will have all kinds of entities that will have come out. There will be all kinds of things that are going on. And to me, this is preparation for us to kind of like get it in our minds what it is that we are going to be facing, what we're going to be able to do, what we will be expected to do. And not everyone can do everything, but like I said, I think we all have different gifts, and we're all going to have different abilities. I'm very much encouraged, you know, to even be thinking in this way, because that means that he's coming, and soon, because we wouldn't have to think about these kinds of things if it weren't going to be something that was imminent. I certainly expect it within my lifetime.
I hope so, me too. I want to be alive to see it. I want to be able to experience it all. I want to be able to see what the wilderness is going to be like. I want to go back to the Middle East, where we're from. I want to have that experience. I'm right with you, sis. I want to have that experience. I don't want to start this work and not see it completed. I don't. You know, and what it did was it prompted me to realize, okay, you need to get your health together. It's time to get things in place so that you can be healthy enough and well enough to be able to see this kind of stuff. Because people leaving here every day. Israelites is dying every day. Conscious Israel. Really. And that's serious business. So, you know, it lets us know, you know, that even with all that, it's still going to take God to give us the permission to stay, you know, and to hopefully he will allow us to see the finished part of this work, you know, but we still have to do something to put ourselves in a position where we're physically able to do that, you know.
Will there be some of us that will not die at all?
I think everybody's going to die, even in the catching away. I believe, because the catching away is going to be the dead that are in Christ first, and then they that are remain. I think you'll go through some sort of a process. Now, I don't know what it is, but everybody's going to experience it, because it's appointed once for every man to die. So however he does that, it will probably be such a quickening that I don't really know how it works. So I'm just kind of speculating, but you'll experience some form of it. Because remember, I don't know who it was it Abraham or Moshe that didn't want to die? And the Most High said, no, death is for every man. Everybody has to die. Adam made sure that every man had to go through the death process. And what a process to go through. I've seen it so many times. I know I have witnessed it at least 10 times from 10 different people at 10 different age groups to watch the whole process. So it's something to see, because it's something they see. I'm gonna tell you something. It's something that they see. One of my residents, when she was getting close, and she was just normal. She wasn't sick. She was just sitting in the chair, and we were in the dining room, and she said, "Do you see that man over in the corner?" Now, when I looked in the corner, it was just the corner. I said, "No, I don't see no man." She said, "That man is standing over there in that corner." I said, "No, it ain't my turn to see the man. That's for you." You know what I'm saying? My turn, it ain't my turn yet. But she saw the man. I said, "Well, what do we have on?" And she went to describing some stuff, and I'm like, "Oh." I said, "Well, I don't see that." I've had people see their parents. My grandfather, before he passed away, he was still coherent. He wasn't laying on no deathbed or nothing. But he was like, he told my grandmother, he said, "I went in the living room, and I saw Mama, and I saw Papa, and I saw so." He was calling his brothers and sisters. "Why they all sitting in there in the living room?" And my grandmother was like, "Ain't nobody in that living room, Alva." He said, "Yes, it is. Mama and Papa is." And when they start doing that, you know what I'm saying, you can start looking for the process to start.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe that there would be some that wouldn't.
What?
I thought maybe there'll be some people that will not taste death, but
no, we all got to in some form of fashion. Yeah, in some form of fashion. And like I said, they see stuff. They see stuff. Why they still fine and walking around eating and drinking? This is just people who have gotten older. Now, I'm not talking about sick people, but I'm talking about people who have aged. And you can tell that they have aged, because my grandfather was in his 90s. You know what I'm saying? This lady that I'm talking about, she was in her late 80s. And she just started seeing people. And, so it's a process.
Okay.
I'm like, wow. And I don't know what he looks like and what the death angel looks like, but I've heard them scream. I've heard them scream.
Calm down.
So,
Shut the microwave.
We just gotta, do. Somebody is in the background talking. Can you mute your phone for me? Yes. It's powerful. It's a process. It's a process. But I think that because you got to understand what death means. Death means going from flesh and blood to immortality, which means that at some point the blood's got to vaporize and vanish for the Spirit of God to fill those vessels, and you're living in a different dimensional state. You understand what I'm saying? So
yes,
you know what I mean? So you're going to go through something to make that transition.
Yeah.
Because life is where? Where's life?
It's in the blood.
It's in the blood. So that's how we sustain life in the phase that we're in right now. Life is in the blood. So as we move from mortal to immortal, that blood has to vaporize and diminish and vanish in order for the power of the Ruach to take the place of that blood, and now you're living as an immortal.
Right.
That's powerful right there. And that's a form of death. That's what happened.
Mm.
You know. So the question is, these people that we read about, when they were brought back to life, was the blood still in play or was it not? We don't know that.
That's true. It's not written in the Word, so we don't know.
And if some are going to be standing around, he said some of these will be here until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom, then they may just have been given the longevity that was necessary for them to get to that point, and then they experience that process. Because the blood has to dry up. Because flesh and blood cannot go from mortal to immortal. People who have blood that's in their body will not be immortal. That's not a part of the process. Yeah.
It makes sense.
Don't that make sense? Isn't that powerful? I mean, that's just powerful, you know. But what's the most powerful part about it is that even though you make the transition, you're still eating, you're still drinking, you're still... I mean, think about it. Think about the children of Israel in the wilderness. The Most High rained down angel food. I'm like, well, why do angels need to eat? You know what I'm saying? Those are eternal creatures. What's the process of them eating? But they have a food that he makes possible for you to have. He said that to the children of Israel.
And too bad that they can recognize it instead of complaining.
They were complaining. And he put a bowl of it in the Ark of the Covenant so that we would remember. This is the power of Yah. That he put a stick in the Ark of the Covenant, a stick with no root on it that buds flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And see, we have to understand how powerful he is. We don't know how powerful he is and who we're dealing with. Because we've had the Gentiles try to tell us, and they don't know him like we supposed to. Like we're getting to know him now. And that's the process. That's the process of having these types of classes, so we can get back to the understanding that we were before we fell under this curse.
We lost everything.
You better say that again, sis. I mean, really. We had access to the Elohim, the Elohim of Elohim. Our God is God.
Mm-hmm.
And our people knew that. That's why they were able to walk up to John the Baptist and say, "Are you Elijah?" And he said no. Because they knew Elijah was supposed to come back. They knew the regeneration. They knew that was a process. And I know this is heavy for a lot of people to deal with, but now that we're coming out of the curse, and we're going to have to start the class for the beginners, you know, for the new people coming, once we get all of this stuff situated, because remember, we're having a meeting on Tuesday. We're going to have this meeting, I think I'll make it at 7:30, so we'll have enough time to really talk, because we're going to have to structure this where we have a class for the newcomers that really start out at ground zero and bring them up to a certain point, and then have the supernatural class on Saturday, because this is our supernatural class where we go into the stuff that we don't talk about when we're understanding the history of Israel. But in order to understand the history, you got to understand the God. And anytime you bring him into the equation, supernaturalness comes with it. It comes with it. You You know? That these people was resurrected at all ages. All ages. You know? Here's what it is. This is who we are. Here's people. And these are the things that we have to know so that we can teach the other people how this thing works. You know, not to say that they'll be able to operate in the power, because I have not read anywhere in the book where any of the other people outside of Israel was able to do this. Everything that I read to you, Israel did it.
They come out at night, and I feel everyone in these resurrections.
Go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
These resurrections, pardon me, but these resurrections are Israel as well. They were the saints that were resurrected, not others.
Yeah.
Not just anybody.
No, not just anybody. You know? Absolutely. I mean, you know, we have to understand who we are and how powerful we are, and what we're going to be able to do, because it's coming back. I don't know how he's going to do it and what phases he's going to put us in to be able to give us, but the fact that he's given us the understanding now means that we've started it. But we're here now. You know, and everybody may not be able to do it because some people ain't living right. They still not living right, but just because you Israel don't mean you're going to have the ability to be able to do it. You know, that you so powerful when you die, your bones are still able to bring life back. That's some powerful stuff. They dropped him over in there, and as soon as he touched that man's bones, he woke straight up.
Wow.
And stood up. Shoot, I mean, for real, you know? Just on the fluke. They call him the unknown man. They don't even know who he was. So, I mean, you know, we have a lot to learn as a nation, and as we begin to grow, you know, and we begin to grow, he gives us more information. And look how far we have moved in knowledge from what we knew in the Christian church.
Yeah.
You know? And we have to understand that.